Welcome to topic 7 of the Technical Principles of Coaching module. This topic is going to explore age specific characteristics within coaching. So, the learning outcomes for topic 7 are detailed below, and these include being able to discuss a variety of pedagogic techniques used to deliver coaching sessions, demonstrating an understanding of the coaching process, and taking into account age-specific characteristics of athletes, addressing the principles of learning across age groups, examining how an understanding of these approaches can be incorporated into the coaching process, again taking into account age, and also reflect upon a planned coaching session taking into account the needs of the particular group and identify the pedagogical strategies applied, which is very appropriate to this topic. So, as always, I like to start with a quote. This quote is by Johan Cruyff. I trained 3 to 4 hours a week at Ajax when I was little, but played 3 to 4 hours a day on the street. So where do you think I learnt football? For me, that quote identifies a number of things. Um, Within the context of age-specific characteristics, it identifies the need for play and the need for unstructured activity with young players being able to play, have fun, and work it out for themselves as well as receive quality training. And to be fair, Johan Cruyff didn't do bad with that with that approach. So, age-specific characteristics, and the starting point will be around long-term athlete development, which I'm sure many of us have heard the term, and many of us have got experiences of different levels of dealing with and looking at long-term athlete development models and programs. So, often coaches deliver adult versions of sport, predominantly adult male versions, to children and youth of both sexes because they are unaware of the need for different types of training at different stages of human development. The LTAD model, the long term athlete development model, actually provides a framework for optimal training, competition, and recovery schedule for each stage of athletic development. These can be applied to both early and late specialisation sports. Ultimately, children, youth, and adults need to be exposed to the correct practices and experiences at the right time to develop in their sport or activity, whether they want to be soccer players, dancers, figure skaters, or gymnasts. An LTAD describes the things athletes need to be doing at specific ages and stages, and it is suggested that coaches who engage in the model and its practices are more likely to produce athletes who reach their full athletic potential. So, for those who haven't seen this model, and there's quite a lot of literature around long-term athlete development, much of which is produced with believe it's the Canadian Institute of Sport. But this model gives you an idea of the 7 stages, if you like, of the long-term athlete development model. So stage 1 is the active start, males and females 0 to 6 years old. Moving into fundamentals, learning to train is stage 3, training to train stage 4, training to compete stage 5, training to win stage 6, and then active for life is stage 7 as an adult. And again, it lists where the leaders and the protagonists within this, what sort of training may need to take place, and what sort of competition level needs to take place as athletes develop on their journey. Again, if you just look at some of the age groups in comparison, so you look at fundamentals, who are the leaders, parents, teachers, recreation leaders, and volunteer coaches, and then compare that to training to compete. Teachers again play an important part, volunteer and professional coaches, and then you've got your sports science, medicine, and nutrition consultants, depending on the level and the progression. You can compare a number of these different areas along the models, and again, this is a guide of what what children need as they move through, or athletes need as they move through that development cycle. Maturation differs between males and females, hence why the age markers actually differ slightly due to that physical maturation being slightly earlier. Sorry, for females on the most part. That is, of course. And again, the more you delve into this LTAD model, it's not just around chronological age. There is biological age factors, windows of opportunity to consider, and that's something that I'd promote everybody to go away and read more around the LTAD model. So, to implement the LTAD model, coaches must fully understand the 7 stages according to Ballier. Also, remember that moving from one stage to another is based on the athlete's development and not just chronological age. So, for example, if we go back, an athlete wouldn't necessarily move from learning to train to training to train just because they hit 12 years old. Some athletes may move earlier, some athletes may move later. It depends on a host of other factors. However, chronological age can be used as a guide, as we mentioned. Some stages also identify developmental age. For example, the beginning of the growth spurt and peak height velocity identifies a specific developmental age, which occurs at widely varying chronological ages. These are some of the biobanding markers and other things that we will also talk about in relation to soccer training and development. As I said earlier, males and females develop at different rates and their ages differ through the stages in terms of biological age. LTAD and long-term athlete development therefore requires the identification of early, average and late maturers to design training and competition programs that match athletes' trainability and readiness. And this is where we as coaches need to understand or have an awareness of these early, average and late maturers in relation to training and competition programs. So, understanding your audience, we've put together a little table. Again, player characteristics and considerations. These are not set in stone, but some key characteristics that I'm sure we can all identify with. So things such as U6, short attention span, primitive and underdeveloped eye-foot coordination, not little concern for team activities. It's all about themselves, which is fine. The children, balance on the dominant foot, no sense of pace, constantly moving, only understand simple rules, and again individually oriented, as I mentioned. As we progress into the U8, developing motor memories, still in motion, still no real sense of pace and speed, much prefer playing to watching or listening or being coached, begin to become aware of peer perception, tend to play well in pairs and small groups, now consider others' feelings, and they also begin to seek out adult approval, praise, recognition. Moving into the 10s and 12s, so gross and small motor skills are more defined. U10 boys and girls begin to develop at different rates biologically, peak height velocity, things like that. Ability to stay on task, lengthened attention span, and ability to sequence thought and actions, and demonstrate an increased self-responsibility, as well as beginning to develop self-concept, body awareness, and self-image. U12, so we start to get pushing more and more 9v9, not far off into 11v11, last year 9v9. Children are maturing at different rates. Peer evaluation is a constant now. Where are they in the pecking order? Bullying can occur at this age group. It can occur below, but real bullying can occur. Coordination can be affected by growth spurt. Can sequence thoughts and actions to perform more complex tasks. Popularity influences self-esteem, and there's now significant physical differences existing between the genders. So you compare U12 girls to a U12 boys team. Moving into the U14, 16 and 18 then. So again, 14's lengthened attention span, attention to detail. Gross and fine motor movements are now becoming much more refined and really set in terms of running gait, running style, things like that. Development of more physical side of the game. Importance of feeling of belonging to a team. Boys develop physically faster. Some girls lose interest at this point due to physical development, amongst other things. And soccer gives the young people and the children a sense of belonging. U16. So we're jumping in 2 year age groups, and these differences can be huge across all of these age groups now. But again, just considerations. 16s now start to understand abstract concepts and concepts relating to the game. Boys and girls now engage due to own desires of wanting to play, so they're old enough to know that this is what they want to do, and hence their involvement in the game. There's a need now for position-specific development. You could argue it should be earlier or later, but U16 now, last year of high school in England, Europe, and coming into the middle of high school and pushing towards varsity in the US. What position do you play? Challenges and pressures of winning may start to be introduced as well at this age group, and the introduction of self-discipline and work ethic. There may still be physiological differences between players of the same gender. So even at U16, you may get a player who's gone right the way through his or her growth spurt and is, in terms of physical maturation, fully developed, and you may get a girl or a boy, more likely a boy, who is probably not even started or just about to start that. There can be huge differences. U18, so begins to develop a deeper understanding of soccer concepts. There's a need for conditioning work now because many of the players have gone through their growth spurt, if not all of them. So now we can really train the strength and conditioning side. Need for position specific refinement, and that will continue all the way through their adult career as well. There is a pressure to perform, they're getting closer to the adult game. If they're in an academy, they're getting closer to the professional game. If they're pushing for a college scholarship, all of those things. Development of work ethic and self-discipline. Boys more energised by the challenge of competition and excitement of winning. And the beginning of professionalism dependent on ability level and environment. So across Europe and in the US, there were players at U18 who were being offered professional contracts. So now it becomes a job and a livelihood, if you like, and that also changes the outlook for these players. So I've also put together a table regarding age-specific implications on coaching. I don't want to talk through the whole thing because many of you will be aware of some of these things in terms of dimensions of pitches, number of players, duration and equipment. But in terms of coaching, behaviours and methodology and training, progressions and themes and conditioning, it's definitely worth a look and see if this resonates. Things such as the coaching methodology, moving from non-directive coaching and being around fun, coaching in small-sided games, coaching in condition games and coaching in the game. Same with training, progressions and themes, fun and games. At U6, U8, we start to introduce technique and game understanding through play. U10, we're still developing technique and game understanding through play. U12 is the skill development through application of pressure in games. We would have pressure and skill development at the younger age groups, but we're really focusing down on what we're progressing through. U14, functional game related practices, same at U16, and then U18 is the real tactical and strategy exercises. So again, have a look at that table, copy and paste it, whatever you need to do from the lectures and slides, and see where that fits and how that can have implications on coaching, on practice design, even on how we deliver and how we approach players of different ages. So moving on, biobanding seems to be the red hot topic in Europe and in the US. I'm going to touch on some of these things. So, biobanding is the process of grouping athletes on the basis of attributes associated with growth and maturation rather than chronological age. Children the same age may vary considerably in biological maturation, with some individuals obviously maturing early, and some classed as late developers in relation to their peers. And the timing of maturation has implications for competition, identification, and training. If I'm honest, this lecture alone could have lasted about 4 hours, because we could have got into relative age effect and other such components. If you've not heard of relative age effect, please go and explore it. It's regarding team and player selection based on when they were born in that year, and the fact that if you were born in the first 3 months of any academic year or selection year, you're at an advantage, is the theory in terms of selection. So that's an interesting area to go and look at. So, biobanding. I've actually pulled up a case study on AFC Bournemouth, and I know Southampton as well, Football Club, were one of the first to look at this within England. A colleague of mine, Graham Mills, from AFC Bournemouth, is actually speaking on this. I was fortunate enough to be on my UEFA licence with Graham, and I've worked with him in the past. Just another development tool in terms of biobanding. So I'm actually going to play this slide if it comes on.
This may look like an ordinary game of football, but what is actually taking place here at Canfor Park Arena today is a first ever biobanding tournament between AFC Bournemouth and Watford. Biobanding is a new phenomenon which is becoming increasingly popular with academies, as it sees children grouped not by chronological age, but instead by physical size. And this is something the AFC Bournemouth Academy are embracing.
So the purpose behind it is so we can take away the physical advantages or disadvantages that some players face during normal training sessions. So, for example, in this game here, we've got some under 13s, under 14s and under 15s all competing in the same match. So what we can do is take away that physical bias and then look at their technical ability and judge them on that, as well as what we do in their normal age groups.
Ben Bradley in the Sports Science Department will look at their maturation status and put them into their biobanded groups. From that, then we're really looking at players competing against each other sort of on an even level in terms of their physical ability, and then really looking at the technical and tactical detail. So you might have a 15 playing with a 12 who's got 3 years more technical development, and that gives them an opportunity to showcase that, where in their own environment, in the 15s, they might be overpowered and not be able to do that. So then they're starting to come up with coping strategies rather than solutions to that issue.
This tournament taking place at Canford Arena is the first the AFC Bournemouth Academy have been involved in, and with the boys seemingly enjoying the unique opportunity to showcase their skills in this environment, it is something they're looking to do more often.
We've been doing it for about a season now, so we started in the summer running an in-house tournament programme where all of our players in the youth development phase are put into their biobands and they compete on a weekly basis. So we've been running it for about a year, and it's proved to be really beneficial. So we've got 15s that are playing with under 12s, we've got under 13s that are playing with under 16s. So taking them out of that element where they can rely on their physical dominance, or perhaps they can't compete physically, and putting them on in an area or an environment that they can, it's proved to be really beneficial. Yeah.
The age-old debate of the criteria used to judge players has become particularly topical of late, with many current Premier League stars having had to take an unconventional route to the top, including our very own Eunan O'Kane and Tyrone Mings.
And this is what we're trying to avoid. So if we can have a different angle on how to look at our players rather than just the way they perform in their normal age groups, it gives us more information to hopefully keep them in the system and just judge them more fairly, as we should as a professional academy.
So whilst this event may be the first the club have been involved in, it certainly doesn't look set to be the last, with plans already in place for the future of biobanding at AFC Bournemouth.
Well, as I said, we've been doing it for about a year in the training environment, which just generated a bit of interest. We've had a couple of clubs contact us, Watford being the first. Ben Bradley contacted their Sports Science Department, but we've also been in touch with Reading and Stoke as well. So if today proves to be really beneficial, which it looks to be, and hopefully this is something we can do on a more regular basis.
So, in terms of research around biobanding, it's still a relatively new area. Um, Even though it's not a new phenomena, biobanding in its crudest sense was done by the New Zealand All Blacks around 100 years ago, where they would select players based on weight and size because the Polynesian children developed earlier than the Caucasian children, if you like. So, in a sport such as rugby union, they had to address that. However, biobanding isn't purely putting players who are the same size and weight together. It's around growth and maturation, and the sports science measurements within that dictate that really. I know the US Soccer Federation are pushing on biobanding, um, and trying to, and they hosted a biobanding tournament a couple of months ago. But again, it's around those age specific characteristics and the challenges for individual players. I've seen firsthand Marcus Rashford at Manchester United always playing up because he needed that challenge. 12, 13, playing with the 16s and 17s sometimes at training. On the flip side, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, who's now at Liverpool, came through Southampton. He was a late developer. They actually held him back a year for his own development. So there is different stories and different journeys for players, and biobanding is just another development tool and area to consider when assessing and coaching players, if you like. It doesn't account for psychological and mental maturity as well, so there's question marks around that, and if it's right to move a young player up based on their physical maturation, but it's definitely an area we should all be exploring. So, to conclude, the LTAD model provides a framework for optimal training, competition and recovery schedule for each stage of athletic development. Individual player characteristics must be considered by coaches and in coaching when planning and setting learning outcomes for players based on their age, both chronological and biological, and ability. Biobanding is another development tool being utilised by clubs and organisations, and is the process of grouping athletes on the basis of attributes associated with growth and maturation rather than chronological age. Some reading on there, and those reading items are listed on the canvas. And finally, the activity. So it would be great if, taking into account these age-specific characteristics, we could ask all of our candidates to create 2 practices. It doesn't have to be full sessions, so it doesn't have to be warm up right the way through to a condition game or play practice, or whole part whole. It just has to be one element of a practice, and it needs to be on the same theme but for different age groups. So for example, practice 1 that you produce may be receiving to play forwards, and it's a skill practice for a U8 team or U8 group of players. Now, how would that practice be delivered on the same theme for U14s? Post your practice plans on the Anglia Ruskin Canvas portal for others to view and comment upon. And again, consider the age group characteristics that will influence your setup, your learning outcomes, your terminology, and individual challenges within each group. So again, what are the expectations for U8s compared to U14s? Does it become more positional play at U14? Does it look more like the 11v11 game? Do U8s have to play a version of the game? How does that look, receiving to play forwards? So it'll be interesting to see your practice plans. Again, thanks for your time, thanks for listening. If you do have any questions, drop me an email, and I hope that this lecture was of value to everybody, and look forward to the next one. Thank you.